Right on, writers. Welcome back to the Books by Adrian author platform. I am your host, Adrian Santiago, and this is the Writer's Den. If this is your first time with us, welcome. I'm glad to have you with us. I am the author of the MYTHIC series. It is a sci-fi fantasy series that starts with the short story prologue thingy called The Death and Rebirth of Bella Erdman. It looks currently like that. And you can find that pretty much everywhere. Link in the description down below. But you can get that short story for free if you sign up for my newsletter. So go to booksbyadrian.com, also link down below, and sign up for the newsletter. You'll get that read for free. And then that will get you all psyched up and ready for the big show, which is Mythic Shadow of the Spark, which looks like, whoops, nope, that's our guest. Thanks. It looks like this. So Mythic Shadow of the Spark is a crime thriller that takes place in that sci-fi fantasy world, and it kickstarts the whole Mythic series. And from there, each novel is going to get wilder and wilder as we go. So remember, free ebook when you join the newsletter, booksbyadrian.com. And that takes care of all the nonsense for today. Let's get started with today's show. Welcome to the Writer's Den. All right. So thanks for coming. Welcome to the show. I'll get to the chat in a little bit. I'm going to let you guys start coming in one by one, although I do see Devin is already in there. Hello and welcome. If you have any and all questions for our guest today, be sure to label them with a Q in the chat so that I can easily find them. I can give them a little star. I can save them, hold them for later, and ask the guest when the time is appropriate. Like, comment, subscribe on the video, all that good stuff. Who is today's guest? Today's guest is Phillip Carter, and we're going to be talking about comedy and sci-fi and his whole brand of sci-fi, which I'm very, very curious about and look forward to learning more about. Let's get ready to bring him out here. Ready, set. Welcome, Phillip Carter. How are you? Let's change this so that it's, boom, a book that you wrote. Welcome to the Writer's Den, buddy. How are you doing today?
I'm good, yeah. You're doing good as well. You've caught up with the recent cover change. That's only about 3 days old, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought
Yours, you mean?
Yeah, I thought it wasn't punchy enough, so I changed it.
Well, because I know that you also have the follow-up coming on, and I saw the different cover for that. I wasn't sure, so we'll talk about that. You're going to clear it up for me. All right, cool. Well, welcome. Go ahead and tell the folks at home where you are, when you started writing, and why.
Why I started writing, that's a weird one. I'm in the UK at the moment. I'm in Manchester, England, where I do a lot of stand-up comedy and stuff. And I started writing when I was 5 years old. And I actually started out writing poetry for my autistic brother. Because like when you're 5 years old, you don't understand autistic meltdowns. So
Yeah.
you're like, I think I can solve this with a haiku. And you know what?
Can it work?
No.
My oldest son is autistic and ADHD. He got the autism from my wife and the ADHD from me, so he's the perfect little cocktail. So I feel you. I feel that story. You know, those meltdowns when they happen. You know, it's quite the challenge. It's interesting that you decided to tackle it with a haiku.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it would work at the time, but I also was at the same age where I thought you could jump in slow motion if you tried hard enough. So
you can do that. I haven't figured out how to yet, but
yeah,
you can
I mean,
do that.
like it might be possible. It's just maybe you need like 200 years of practice, and humans just don't live enough to work it out.
That's what I think, man. Yeah, it's all a matter of willpower, brain power, and time, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good enough reason as any to start writing, man. A noble reason indeed. And so since you were a kid, you were writing.
Yeah, since I was a kid, like one of my earliest memories is writing science fiction stories. I didn't necessarily have an imaginary friend, but I like to imagine one day I'd meet an alien and we'd go on adventures together. I didn't like have a like imaginary friend that I'd make, you know, tea parties with or anything. I just thought it'd be really cool if I knew an alien, and that kind of stayed with me for most of my life, to be honest.
Yeah, as those things tend to do with us, huh? Yeah,
but
for
like
sure.
those themes of like the themes of alienation and stuff definitely came through in my more serious work. There's themes of like alienation, isolation. In Who Built the Humans, there's existential questions in between the rude jokes. I'm actually not familiar with like the age rating of this podcast because I'm like I don't know if I can talk about everything that's in it because it gets dark and gritty later on.
Well, I mean, as far as audience wise, my channel is listed as an adult channel. We talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about on here, so don't feel any need to censor yourself on the audience's accord. As far as spoilers and stuff, that's entirely up to you as the author, how much you want to share about your project. I'm not gonna push you any further than you want to go, but yeah, man, speak freely for sure. All right. Now, one of the things that you describe your writing as is accessible sci-fi. What is accessible sci-fi? What does that mean to you?
Well, interestingly enough, it's to do with ADHD. So I've got a friend in America called Zach, and he's had ADHD his whole life. He's not just, he's not picked up ADHD as a hobby. He's had it his whole life.
Like I did.
he's had it the whole time. And he wasn't able to read books. Like, he couldn't get through a full book. Like, this is how big Who Built the Humans is. It's 325 pages.
Not too
he
bad.
Couldn't get all the way through the average book because he'd get bored. And I don't think that's his problem. I think that's a problem in literature. I think literature needs to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more accessible. So what I did with Who Built the Humans, before I really talked to Zach too much about that kind of thing, is I split it up so you can read the chapters and the stories in any order you want, and it has a different feeling each time. The idea that I had initially was I want to write a big book that people can read on the train, get interrupted during the journey, start reading it again a month later, and not feel completely lost. Because that's an issue that I have with books, is I don't really get that much time to read a whole one in one sitting.
Sure, same.
And I'm the type of person, if I like a line, I'll read it 4 or 5 times over, which means I read books incredibly slowly. Even though I technically read them quick. Yeah, like I'll read them quick, and I'm like, actually, I really like that scene. I'm going to read it 20 more times and not speak to anyone. It's like,
20 is excessive, but I was relating with you up until then. I related up until the 20.
Hyperbole is the key to good comedy as well. So like, that's always going to sneak in. But yeah, he messaged me once and he said, "This is the first book I've finished reading in 4 years."
Whoa!
And he called it ADHD friendly science fiction. And that's kind of become the brand since then, because I thought, well, nobody else is doing it. And I've never been diagnosed, but the irony of that is I was close to a diagnosis, but I got bored of waiting. True story. I was on the phone to my doctor and he said it might take about 9 months. And I said, but I'll be a different man by then. And he went, okay, Phillip, and just hung up. I was like, right, fair enough. Fair enough.
I can't think of a more ringing endorsement for for an ADHD friendly book than the author was impatient in waiting for his diagnosis for ADHD.
Yeah, I've got stuff to do. I've got Lego sets to count.
Yeah, man. Yeah, ADHD friendly sci-fi. I'm fascinated by that. Because you describe it as one big story, but chopped up in a way that you could read it in any order. Talk a little bit more about that, because my initial assumption when I was looking through your information on your website and such was that it was like one of those like Goosebumps choose your path kind of deals. But now I'm thinking maybe I'm incorrect in assuming that. Tell me a little bit more about this ADHD friendly sci-fi and how you can read it in any order. What exactly do you mean?
This is why I'm bad at marketing, because I'm about to tell you that both of those assumptions were correct simultaneously.
See,
it sounds a lot more
true ADHDer to make it a paradox.
At the end of one of the comedy sci-fi poems, which I'm not going to read out, even if this is an uncensored podcast, because one of them is disgusting. Fair warning.
I need to know which one so I can start with that one.
I think it's on Shame, and it's about robots trying to kill humans by reminding us of all the bad things we've done, so we just get too depressed to remember to eat.
If there was ever a way, that would be the way to do it.
That's how I wrote this like 5 years ago, and AI is doing that right now. It doesn't even know it's doing it.
Maybe it does.
Oh, that's a nice career you've got there. It'd be a shame if it was dead. And then all the artists like,
yeah,
just shrinking away. But having a dark sense of humor, I think, is very necessary to sci-fi. For me, the two they can't be removed from each other. But yeah, the build your own adventure style of it, I'll try and find a bit. So there's 11 universes that cross over, but you can really read it as like 11 different novellas in a way. But at the end of like one chapter, it will say this universe is continued on page 79. But if for whatever reason, I'm not going to be offended, if for whatever reason the reader thinks, I've had enough of that universe, I want to see what happens in another one, you can just turn to the next page and you've got, a story about somebody selling their soul to an alien. And you're like, oh, okay, that's a cool break. And then the next story, you can either jump to page 71 to continue that universe, or you read my really long poem about freedom of speech, which some people don't understand the joke behind. And that is why I went self-published, because no publisher would have accepted that.
Of course.
I got like I sent it to one person and they were like, you're genuinely insane. And I went, oh, is that a no? I don't know if that's a no or not. But I've had one guy message me going, one of the comedy poems is blacked out. Is that meant to happen? I was like, yeah. Like, I've only had one person that didn't get it, so I'm okay. Everybody else.
God bless indie authors, man. Like we really are like paving the way. I saw a book by an indie author last year. I can't remember the gentleman's name at this point, so I apologize. But he was doing stuff where, like, because his book was also sci-fi and very wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey type stuff. Sometimes, like, you would turn the page and the line at the top of the page, instead of going like it normally would like suddenly just start going into a spiral, like you're reading in a spiral and you're like following it all the way, and it was just maddening, like the kind of stuff that he was doing from page to page. You're like, there's no way any publisher would have touched that with a 10-foot pole, man.
No, exactly. I mean, I've tried to do that with poetry, and I have to congratulate that unnamed author because it is incredibly hard to format. The best way to do it is probably to make like a transparent backed PNG with the letters on it. Yeah. And then just have that as an image in the book rather than, because it's just messing around with it.
Just a giant page-size image.
Yeah, it just has to be an image, which is how I'm going to do it with like upcoming poetry collections and stuff. But that sounds really clever.
Yeah, it was very interesting. The whole book was experimental like that, doing crazy stuff like that. Whenever like the character was falling through time or whatever was happening, weird stuff would happen to the text. This is something that I don't do, but I kind of want to start doing is actually annotating the books that I read. For me, for so long, books were so sacred, and you just don't do stuff to them. But now that I write them, now I kind of want to like write in every book that I own. Like I just want to like make little notes in the margins and stuff. There's something has shifted in me. Like, do you do that? Do you make annotations in your books?
Usually only with science books. When it comes to like fiction, I'll just take a picture of the page I like. And I did briefly have like an Instagram account dedicated to it, not with the goal of getting any followers, but just as a way to have like an external memory of the pages that I liked. But I don't remember where that went. ADHD. Yeah. It's just one day I just forgot about it. It was quite a cool project.
Buenos días, Jennifer. ¿Cómo está? Muy bien. Jennifer is fascinated with anything that takes into consideration people that are neurodivergent. So I think that you have an instant reader on your hands here.
No, thank you, Jennifer.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that comment before. I was waiting to respond to it because that's really good news for me as a writer.
I'm sure she's not the only one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she's not the only one. But the difficulty is with traditional publishing is, well, I feel like I'm doing an okay job of representing neurodiverse people. There's an element of imposter syndrome if you're not officially diagnosed with stuff. But I will say that my sister's been diagnosed with autism. She made me take the test, and I got a higher score than her. Ha, 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 ha. So I'm still the better child. after all these years.
It's the still for me. You're still the better
Yeah.
child.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, and she got me this today as well, which is a spinning ghast from Minecraft,
That's pretty
and
cool.
and
Oh,
she's
that's
described
cool.
it to me as like this is the autism artifact. You can have this when you don't want to talk to people. I'm gonna put it
I
up there
love
because
it.
I'm feeling conversational today. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. The representation's really interesting because about 50% of my characters' protagonists are female as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been told I do a good job of representing women. And somebody asked me about it when I was in uni. I ran a writing society briefly at Edgehill University here in the UK. And somebody said, "How do you write compelling female characters?" I said, "Well, the trick is remember that they're people."
Yeah.
And like, that guy was a bit offended by that comment, but some of the stuff that people had written was like very limited in scope. It was like, oh, she's a woman, so she's going to worry about boyfriends. I'm like, the planet has just been split in two by a giant robot. She will not care about boyfriends, even if she already has one. She'll be like, whoa, the planet's splitting in two. This is kind of a big deal.
He's probably dead already, just cut your losses.
Yeah, the boyfriend was stood right where the planet got split into, so it's probably not great for him either.
Yeah.
Now she's got two boyfriends.
Yeah. Half on each side of the planet.
Yeah. But it's very interesting because I've told I've had somebody say that they really like one of the autistic characters in Who Built the Humans, but I didn't say that she's autistic.
They can just tell.
I can just tell, yeah. So I won't say which one it is because I think it betrays.
That's the way to go.
It betrays yourself as a writer if you go, by the way, this character is written to be autistic. Please notice and praise me. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, if I've done a good job, people will notice without me having to point out which one it was.
Yeah. What's super interesting is when a character reveals to you that they are one way or another, neurodivergent, LGBTQ, whatever it may be. Like at some point, the character reveals, "Oh, I hadn't realized until just now." That's interesting.
Yeah, I love when that happens. There's a character who was a side character in Who Built the Humans. He's now a main character in 4 other books because he was like, everybody loved him, and then I thought, hang on, I really love this guy as well. So me and the readers are agreeing, which is great. That doesn't always happen when I write poetry. I'll write poetry that I don't like, and then people will tell me it's brilliant, and I'll go, I don't understand why people like that. So it is surreal. But with science fiction, I tend to like align with my audience pretty well. So Lax Morales, he's had a line of dialogue where he's an alien. So he's talking to somebody about whether he might be autistic or not, and he goes, "I'm not autistic. I'm just an alien." And the joke there being that the reason he doesn't understand social norms is that he genuinely could not care less about them.
Yeah, they're not even his social norms. There's some other.
Like, look, I've come back in time 15,368 years to save you goddamn primates from the time machine that's also intelligent and wants you all to die. I don't care about where I should put the fork on the table. Just can we deal with something else? And I just really love him as a character because he just gets shit done. But he does it in his own way, and because he's an alien, he doesn't have the same moral compass as us. So he will do stuff in the book that humans might hesitate about, but he sees the bigger picture. He's like, in 5,000 years, they'll have forgotten all about the murders. It's fine.
But they'll still be here. And, yeah.
I mean, there'll still be some humans. He doesn't have to kill all of us, just the ones that are in his way.
Why is comedy so important in your science fiction writing?
Oh, that is a good question. Because I think fiction is too serious these days, and I really like this idea of escapism. I've just changed my bio on Instagram to Escapism Manifest because I was trying to consolidate everything I do because I don't fit it in one bio. I'm like, I was on Channel 4's Lego Masters. I'm like a Lego micro celebrity, apparently, which is weird. Science fiction author, comedian, comedy writer, editor, the other thing. There's some stuff I don't even remember half the time. And I'm like, what does it all have in common? I'm like, escapism, just fun. Like telling big, complicated stories for fun. And I think comedy and science fiction have a similar goal, at least where I'm concerned, in exploring ideas in ways that people haven't considered before. So not just going, wouldn't it be cool if there was spaceships, but how would we feel about the spaceships and how would our behavior change if the spaceships were run by AI and, for example, we were basically their pets? and they just carried us around because we wanted to be carried from planet to planet. And they weren't really too interested in going to places. They just kind of liked the conversation. And then there's stories like that, and it's like you can go either way with that. You can go comedy or you can go serious. And I tend to go both at the same time. So there's like a really serious story in the Stephanie Glitch universe inside Who Built the Humans, where their resident AI wants them to not land on a planet. The humans want to land on a planet and repopulate like the human species, but the resident AI decides it's a bad idea because there's certain parameters that a planet has to meet before we should land on it. And everybody else is like, right, we need to desperately go to this planet. Thank you, Devon, by the way. That's free sales this week now. I'm smashing it out of the park.
Gotta love it. Love it. This is what we're here for, people. Well done.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank
Devin
you
is
so
awesome. She has also purchased my book, and if I can say anything nice about a person who has purchased my book, it's that she also read it. And
yeah, I get that.
I cannot say that very often. Yes, occasionally I'm very excited to announce that someone has purchased my book, but it is very rare to announce, hey, this person actually read the entire thing.
Yeah. That's what I love about like being an indie author as well. And it's like, yeah, it'd be nice if you were like selling millions of copies a day, but at the same time, I imagine it would be deeply isolating because you wouldn't be able to have conversations with people that are like real in any sense. So I'm
you
really
gotta
happy
weed through the bullshit to get to it. There's going to be a lot of like just yes man bullshit coming your way when there's thousands of people buying your stuff. Yeah,
sure. Like I'm really happy where I am at the moment because Who Built the Humans used to have a matte cover, and it actually said on the first advert, "Please don't eat donuts before reading this book," because like matte covers are a nightmare to clean. And one of my friends bought it, and she was a beta reader as well, and an editor, and she pointed out some grammar errors. They were intentional. I'm a poet as well, by the way. Any errors that I make aren't errors.
They're purely intentional. You're making up new words. They just don't know them yet.
Yeah, intentional grammatical machines that I've constructed in my mind that aren't the product of me writing at 5 a.m. at all. No, but there was a few like bits where I'd use like an adjective as a verb intentionally, and we had like that conversation, and she was really great at editing it. But one day she said, "I don't think I can edit this book for you anymore." And I said, "Why?" And she went, "I spilled bolognese on my only copy." And she sent me a picture, and it was soaked. It was like she dipped it in the pan. And then that's why when I changed to the gloss cover, and then I mentioned her in the next advert, and I said, "Now you can rub sauce all over it."
Sharp.
And like I sold like 10 copies that week because people were like, "Oh, brilliant! I've always wanted to rub sauce on a book."
Here we go, the perfect book to do it.
I've got my audience then.
What a niche! You need to start promoting immediately.
Local autistic author misunderstands the concept of a saucy book.
You know, I want to go back a little bit to something you said earlier about injecting comedy in your writing as escapism. I find that very interesting because I write what can easily from the cover be construed as very serious, dark, grim kind of crime thriller stuff, right? But I find that comedy is what brings some of the realism to my writing, whether it's witty banter between two characters in dialogue, or if it's just witty stuff that people are thinking in their own heads about somebody else in the scene. Things like that, wherever I can fit them, I do, because that's how it is in my, like, sometimes I have to fight not to laugh at a funny thought that I had in my head because it would be socially unacceptable to laugh in this particular moment. But in my book, I can write it in there. So it's interesting that we're coming at it from like almost two opposite sides to it. Like, I feel like I need to inject the comedy in order to make it more realistic. And for you, it's more about the escapism. That's very interesting.
I definitely agree with the realism as well, though, to be honest, because like one of my other points was going to be about how astronauts will get along with each other. You know, if you're going to spend years picking which astronauts are going to spend 6 years together in a tin can, they're going to need to be friends, and friends tell jokes with each other. So there's like, you know, in the same story where the AI is trying to stop them from landing on a planet because it's worried that it's not going to end well for them. There's a guy whose initials are BSC, and he's in a cryo chamber, and somebody scrapes over his initials the words "best served cold," and like that's something that I would do. I would do that, and I would probably get told off. But who's going to fire me? I'm in
Yeah.
orbit around Jupiter. It's not like they can send me outside. That would be like a crime against humanity.
They're gonna be
There's
like,
nothing we
Phil,
can do
too
about
soon. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm all the way out here.
It's like, what are they going to do about it?
What are
So
you gonna
yeah,
do about it?
definitely. Like the realism's important as well, because without humor, I think science fiction it just collapses in on itself. I saw somebody tweeting the other day about how somebody said their writing was stifled in a workshop, and I thought quite a mean comment, but I can understand where somebody's coming from. Without reading their writing, I understand what the motivation is, because usually I would perceive that to mean you've had a really good idea.
Somebody shot it down.
But you've told me about the idea in the prologue of the book, and then the rest of the book is just characters talking about the idea, and the idea isn't actually happening. So it's like a lot of the time you need characters to have a sense of humor, because it brings a sense of realism, but also a sense of levity to things, because without that, you've just got serious thing, and readers' brains will just burn out. I know mine does. And that goes back to the ADHD friendly science fiction. You need those shifts in color and tone to actually make something really interesting.
I always think about this this story that Louis C.K. told on stage once. I don't think he was even doing like a stand-up special at the time. I think he was speaking to like maybe a college or something like that. But he told the story about his time working on the Conan O'Brien show, where he was just like really burnt out. He was on the writer staff. And he was burnt out and he was really stressed, and he wanted to quit the show, and he went as far as to go to his boss and say, I quit. And his boss was like, don't quit, don't be an idiot, this is a good gig, you're burnt out, take a vacation, just take 2 weeks paid vacation, go decompress, come back. So Louis wanted to get away, as far away as humanly possible. He couldn't think of anywhere else to go but Russia. He was like, I can't think of a more foreign place to me than Russia. That's as far away from here, from Conan O'Brien, as I can get. So I'm going to Russia. So he goes to Russia like right after the wall came down. Like it was chaos over there. It was just the Wild West of Russia. And he tells this horrible like story of like how depressing everything was, and everywhere he went he just had like a more depressing story every stop along the way. And he ends it at he's way down in the subway, and he's watching a violinist in the subway, and it's an amazing, everyone who's watching is crying, because the person playing violin in the subway is also the first chair of the Russian Symphony Orchestra. They don't make any money, so he's down there in the subway with a hat on the ground like everybody else. And so he's playing beautifully and everybody's crying, and Louis standing there watching, and he sees that there's this man and this group of kids walk by, and the kids are obviously homeless, and they're wearing like the coats of like a grown-up that they, some dead guy they probably grabbed the coat off of. Just a really depressing scene. And the man on the floor that Louis is looking at sees the kids and beckons them over and says something in Russian, and the kid pulls out from his sleeve, he didn't have to root around for it, he pulls out from his sleeve shoe glue, and the guy grabs it and he glues his shoe that was broken, and he gives it back to the kid, and the kid puts it in a paper bag and he huffs it and gets high and walks away. And then the guy and Louis lock eyes and start laughing, because in this wretched country, like this man sees a group of kids and he goes, surely one of them has shoe glue in his pocket, because the state of our country is so wretched. And he did. And everybody, like, it worked out for everyone. And so even when things are that bad, things are still funny. Comedy still happens in the most horrible of places. And that's kind of where I come from with injecting comedy into stories where, chapter 1, there's dead bodies on the ground,
Yeah, it's good to do that sort of stuff. That's a really good story. I've never heard that before.
Look it up. It's on YouTube. Pitch to us, since you've been talking about it for a little while. What is Who Built the Humans? Why should we read it? What can we expect to find in it?
It's a weird book for weird people. If you've got a sense of humor and you like science fiction, it's the book for you. If you've not got a sense of humor, I'd prefer you not to buy it, because you'll write a bad review of it. It is unrelenting in its humor. If you're not sure, actually, I'm really bad at pitching it. Just read the reviews on Amazon, particularly by Mark Taylor. He's my favorite.
Okay, I'll look him
I was
up.
I was in a really bad mood one day, and I checked Amazon, and he'd written that review, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to release the hostages.
Nice.
Yeah.
Release
And
the
I'm like,
hostages.
be free. Like,
You can thank the reviewer on the internet.
Yeah.
He has purchased your life with his words.
No, but he wrote about the book in a way that like I hadn't thought of doing, because I tend to try and play the cleverness down because I don't want to spook people. And you see books in the supermarket, and it's like it's called The Dragon Lover's Apprentice, and everybody just calls the book brave. Like, why would you pay a reviewer to just write a one-word review? What's brave about the book? I don't care whether it's brave or not. I care whether it's fun. A book can be whimpering in a corner, but as long as it's fun to read, I'll read the damn thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is such a powerful book. How is it powerful? It's a book. Explain it to me.
Yeah.
Don't just say it's powerful. Show, don't tell. Come on. Just grab the reviewers. Explain.
to play devil's advocate for those reviewers. As an author, I do know that while having good reviews is very important and having bad reviews is obviously unfavorable, the number of reviews is really what we're after. If you want to leave a review and all you want to say is this is a good book, and that's it, that's good enough for me, because you added a one next to my, like, there's another tick next to my name, and there's another one, like, just I need the review numbers to go up so Amazon will know that I exist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not meaning like regular readers. I'm meaning paid reviewers from like newspapers and stuff. They'll get like $2,000 to review a book, and all they'll say was, "This was very beautiful."
My female main character is dying.
It's a 700 page. Like they'll review a 700 page book and say it's beautiful, and I'm like, surely all of it isn't beautiful.
Surely, with
otherwise
that
would
pages,
be very monotonous.
That many words. Yeah, you would have some thought other than that. Yeah. People tell me how long my book is, and then how come you can't say more about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because like there's 11 sort of stories going on inside Who Built the Humans, so I could pitch each one individually. And indeed, I've recently re-released one of them on Amazon as a standalone, just to get more like people seeing it. But there's some which I feel work kind of like a poem, so they work better in the book with the context of the other stories around them. Whereas in isolation, they'd still be perfectly good stories, but they wouldn't have the same effect as you've just read this one and that one either side of them. But yeah.
Gotcha. Seems like there's a lot of angles to this.
Yeah, it's like a concept album.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. Well, how is Who Killed the Humans different? Because I know that it is. Pitch us a follow-up.
It's like Who Built the Humans' evil little brother. So I've just ramped up the comedy for this one. The story starts with a woman whose husband goes missing, and she's on a farm. They've just got a new horse, and one day her husband goes missing, and the horse is suspiciously larger than it was yesterday. And she goes up to the horse, and it poos out a scarf, and she pulls the scarf out of the back end of the horse. And the scarf has a very long-winded message knitted into it, describing apocalyptic events which are soon to come. And it turns out that it's a magic horse that can knit prophetic messages with its bowels, and you have to keep feeding it jumpers. And that's how the story begins, with Who Killed the Humans. And all of the universes, instead of Who Built the Humans, where the universes are kind of separate, but sometimes cross over, in Who Killed the Humans, each of the universes wants the other one to die. And it just gets really, really manic. I'm going to try reading it out at a stand-up night as well. It's deranged.
I'm speechless.
It's a lot of fun.
I can't wait. I'm going to have to get into both of these, because holy crap, that sounds hysterical.
This is why self-publishing exists. Like, I'm not going to spend 20 years of my life trying to email serious people about horse anuses. I'm a comedian. I know when I know what my audience is. My audience is not serious people on Gmail. My audience is drunk physicists in bars. the last time I sold a paperback comedy was actually to a drunk physicist that I bumped into in a cocktail bar. It was brilliant.
I was gonna say, what kind of bars are you hanging out in that there's like physicists just like drinking around?
I have a theory. I just manifest them. I think they just like follow me around, trying to work me out. Yeah, I just tend to wind up just bumping into nerds in places, which is brilliant.
Those damn nerds, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, I also saw something about something called the Earth Loop Trilogy. What is this? Tell me about this.
This is even darker and this time quite serious, but it still has jokes in it, obviously, because it's me.
Sounds more like this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, time travel trilogy, which follows Lax Morales, a character that you'll be introduced to in Who Built the Humans. I'm not sure if he'll show up in Who Killed the Humans, because he's really important in Earthloop, and he's quite a serious character. What happens basically is he comes to Earth to track down a time machine, and there's this alien time machine that he needs to obtain before somebody else obtains it and basically takes over the galaxy, and Earth just becomes a battleground, and humans really are just kind of the creatures that get in the way while that's happening. But at the same time, he's trying to keep it low key, so he's got a reptilian alien called Fixer who claims that she's killed him in the future, and that's the only reason she's not assassinated him now, is because she remembers already assassinating him. And they wind up developing a very weird relationship that has some comedy in it, because then he claims that he's going to kill her as well, and then they wind up hanging out with each other. The first scene is them two having an argument in a restaurant, and because he's a shape-shifting crab, she orders the crab from the restaurant, and she's like, "Oh, look, it's you! This would be like you eating a monkey because you love humans so much." And he's like, "Will you stop bringing up the fact I had a love affair with a human?" And she's like, this is like me eating you, isn't it?" And they hate each other, but they have this banter as well. And at the same time, the Roswell UFO incident happens, but turns out it was just a cover-up because something else happened 3 miles down the road, and they wanted the press to kind of go that way instead. They didn't want the press to see the real UFO, so they're like, "We'll just shoot down another one and say it was fake." It's manic. And every book follows Lax Morales through one of his lives. So he lands on Earth in the 1950s, and in 2016 he goes back in time, and then book 2 starts, he lives another life, goes back in time, and then book 3 starts. And he has to spend those 3 lives trying to unpick the mystery and get rid of these aliens that are just basically using Earth as an experimental, like, quarantined area for time travel research, which is why a lot of weird shit happens to all the humans involved. It's fun.
The level of sheer imagination, your imagination actually like reminds me of this podcast I used to listen to called Hello from the Magic Tavern. Have you ever heard of this?
I have. Did that start as a D&D thing?
It's kind of a D&D thing. Yeah, basically like a group of improv comics got together to start a podcast, and they took the basic idea behind like a D&D campaign and just turned that into a podcast. So the idea is that each of them plays a character, and every episode they sit around and just talk in the voice of those characters. And one of them is a shapeshifter, but he can only shapeshift once he has joined with a particular target, and then he can become that thing. Yeah. And so when you first meet him, he's in the shape of a badger, and he's just a badger for like 20 episodes. You know, that's just the form that he's in. And then one day he walks in and he's like this tiny little horse, and everybody's like, "What did you do?" And it's just hysterical because if he shows up looking different, something went down. And it's just like that's the vibes I'm picking up with when you talk about yours. You know, just very outlandish and hysterically charming.
Yeah, charming's a good word, because Lax Morales is forever the gentleman. So he lands as a crab, lands on Earth, and he's like, right, tears 4 of his legs off, pretends to be a human. He's like walking around like that, finds his way into a swamp henge town, and he shapeshifts into a human, kind of models himself off like a military soldier that he finds. He just finds a soldier in the desert. Doesn't kill him, honestly. He's fine. He pulls one of his arms off. The guy survives. It's fine. But he turns into a soldier, and he's like, right, I'm going to be a human. And he's basically, as he was traveling to Earth, just watching a load of our like 1940s television shows that were just like flying out into space and all of those radio broadcasts.
Right.
So he turns up and he's got one of these voices in the beginning. And then over time, he kind of becomes more and more American. And he's like, so he starts off like 1940s, like sort of BBC announcer kind of voice. And then he becomes American. Later on, he becomes a televangelist. Because he's a psychic, he thinks, well, I'm a legitimate psychic. Seems pretty easy to earn a lot of money doing that as a career. So he uses his actual psychic powers to become a psychic medium, and he's like talking to people. But the trick is he can't actually see the dead. He's just a telepath. So when he says to people, oh, you had a grandma called Mavis and she died 3 years ago, they go, oh my God, did she tell you? And he's pretending that she did. Whereas in fact, he's looking into the minds of the people in the audience.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's all of that. And then in his third life, he's an old man by that point because he can only live like 600 years. As you know, all alien crabs, they don't last that long. So
I did not know. It's
there's a point where he has to shapeshift into like to look like some member of military personnel to sneak into a base, but he can't actually sneak in because he's struggling to shapeshift. And everybody's like, but you're a shapeshifter. And he goes, look, I'm old. I've not done it for 25 years. It hurts. And like he's trying to shapeshift and all his joints are creaking. So he's like an old man at that point. So he starts as like basically in his 20s. And then by the end of the third book, he's decrepit just because he's gone back in time 3 times. Like he's lived 200 and odd years on Earth. And for each of those years caused a lot of trouble.
What cracks me up is the idea that he does have in that one version psychic abilities. He has an actual power, and yet he pretends that he has a different power.
Yeah,
like, he uses real power to like be a charlatan and pretend to have power. It's like you could just like use the real power.
Yeah, no, that's what I love about it. And there's a scene where he goes back in time and he almost bumps into his past self, and his past self wants to learn about the future so he can get like an upper hand against the aliens. And he tries to read his own mind, but he just gets a migraine because he's getting feedback. Because he can't read it, you can't read your own mind, so he just winds up giving himself a really bad migraine, and then he's gone for a chapter because he's just lying in bed. And I've just realized, you know what? Maybe it is a comedy.
I think it's clearly a comedy.
It might be, yeah. It might be
clearly like a comedy.
Oh well.
All right. The other one I saw was the Stephanie glitch. Anything you can tell us about the Stephanie glitch?
Yes, I'm pitching that to a publisher at the moment. I don't do that very often, but I found one that I really like, and they opened for subs a few days ago. Okay. And they said they want unusual stories, and I thought, thank you. They said they want unusual stories, and I thought, well, Stephanie's weird. So the Stephanie glitch is a story where a teenager discovers that her synesthesia, medical condition whereby one sense is translated into the other. I have it, so I can hear flowers and I can see fire alarm noises. And she discovers that her synesthesia is actually translating signals that her brain otherwise wouldn't have picked up because they weren't that strong. So there's like a little bit of electromagnetic noise that she can't usually pick up, but because she's got synesthesia, it turns into music in her head. And through that, she realizes that there's actually a parallel universe that's about to collide with her universe. And she can see herself in that universe, but she's a skeleton in that universe in a tube. And she thinks, right, so am I dead or am I being 3D printed? I'm not too sure which way this is going to go. And turns out there's a time-traveling poet who wants to kill her because they want to harvest her psychic powers.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do. Because there's not many Stephanies in the universe. She's kind of like a genetic freak. So they're going around trying to collect all the Stephanies.
I know a lot of Stephanies, but
I'm trying to dial down the weirdness so as not to spoil it, but she has other bits about her that are really weird. Hey,
just saying hi.
Yeah, cool. There's so many people here. But yeah, Stephanie glitch is it's an interesting one because that's a standalone novel, and basically she goes through this like reincarnation loop trying to find the real universe. It's kind of like a simulation theory thing, but also a little bit of black hole cosmogony, the idea that universes can be generated past the event horizon of black holes. So going into one, you actually get 3D printed into another universe. And she like astral projects through all of these realities, trying to find one where she feels like she really belongs, because she becomes later on, she becomes of the belief that this her first life wasn't actually her first. and that she's been reincarnated and she's trying to kind of do past life regression. But the twist is she can actually visit her past life physically through time and space and see if it's true. And it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And at one point she becomes a tree, and then she dies, and then she psychically transmutes her mind into a cyborg goldfish. And yeah,
What?
it's good. It's a good book. It's a good book. I should mention that part in the pitch, because they'll just go, what the fuck? Who is this guy?
Bro, I'm thinking that right now. Like, what have I invited in here? Like, this is awesome. All right. Well, you brought it up. Let's talk time travel.
Yes.
There are obviously different types of time travel, different types of time travel stories, and it can often be a very divisive, trope, a very divisive trope in a lot of sci-fi genre, because it can be very easy to mishandle and goof up or flub, or it opens you up to plot holes, and there's all kinds of reasons not to write time travel stories, and yet we keep doing it. So what are your time travel stories like, and how do you tackle the challenges of a time travel story?
I think if you've got open-ended multiverse time travel like in Marvel, you're going to wind up with what's happening to Marvel at the moment, where they were a very strong rope of storytelling, and now that's frayed, and nobody really knows which one's the real one. It's like, what is this canon? And I think I don't want my readers to worry about that. My time travel is entirely deterministic. If Lax Morales goes back in time, he sees himself dead on the ground, that will happen. That's going to happen. It's not an alternate universe that you can escape from. The time travel in Earthloop, at the very least, is 100% deterministic. In the Stephanie glitch, there's a bit of a parallel universe thing, but it's not linear like left to right. It's more a hierarchy. So one universe came first. So they're very much different realities, not ones that split off from a timeline. But there might be another Earth, but things will have been very different. And she's not going to bump into another version of herself, for example. And if that does happen, it happens in the deterministic time travel stories.
Is it by way of does she use a device to time travel? Is it a power that like, what's the mechanism?
It's kind of like a Matrix-like scenario, so there's no device needed. So for the first few universes, she's in a simulation. And the travel is like astral, it's psychic travel between these two universes, but it can only be activated upon the point of death, because some of these universes were at some point afterlife simulations for humans, and the only way to get into them is to die. So she has to die to check them out. So there's that at the end of certain chapters where she's like, I don't actually know if there's another universe after this, so I'm not going to jump off anything. I'm going to just wait until I'm really old. So like there's that kind of existential angst with that one. And with the Earthloop, there's 3 main instances of time travel, once at the end of each book, and they're entirely deterministic. So there's a scene right at the start where there's actually 2 Lax Moraleses sat in a lecture theatre trying not to talk to each other just in case shit happens. But he really wants to go and listen to the same lecture twice, but he doesn't want to break time. And they have different philosophical beliefs. So his enemy, Fixer, she believes that there is multiversal time travel, and that by killing Lax Morales at the wrong point, she could actually change things. Whereas he believes it's deterministic, and he has to have things very precisely done, which is why he doesn't worry too much about morals. If somebody needs to be dead at a certain point in time, he's going to make sure they're dead. Stuff like that. So there's all that different interplay going on underneath the surface. But for the sake of the readers, the idea of it being deterministic as well makes it a lot easier to read, because you've not got the additional worry of, is this actually a dream sequence? No, it's happening. He's just been shot in the head. It's happening.
Yeah, you don't have to worry if it's an alternate reality, if it's a branch off, if it's gonna not affect anything. Like it's all one timeline.
Yeah. There's only like one scene really where you misled for a bit. It turns out he was trying out a technology called the Dream Screen, which is something to do with humans. Essentially, kind of like a headset that you wear that puts you in a sort of dream state, but it's also a mix of a technological simulation. And he's in that for like one chapter, and he realizes that he's able to do things that he shouldn't be able to do, and he breaks out of it. So yeah, there's not much worrying about, is this legitimate or not? all the time travel is. You know, it's not going to get retconned, is what I'm saying. It's not going to.
Yeah.
By book 2, I'm not going to go, hey, by the way, readers, you just wasted a year of your life. It's all different now. Way! Because oh god, I hate that. I hate that so much. It's why I can't read a lot of time travel, because as soon as
It's
they do
important
that,
to respect the reader.
yeah, remember that character that you cried about? He's back. Why is he back? Merchandise. You can buy the pop vinyls now because he's not dead. Like,
yeah, the story
there's
matters.
No stakes anymore. There's no narrative stakes to that if they can just keep coming back.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful with that. That like if somebody does come back from the dead, it's because they faked their own death, and I'll put a setup there for it. And I only do it like maybe once in the next 4 books that happens. And if you look back, you're like, oh, actually, it was kind of obvious. I should have noticed before.
What year did this come out? Who Built the Humans?
Who Built the Humans came out initially in 2020. And since then, because I've been juggling writing like 5, 6, 8 different books, I've not had another one come out yet. I've put short stories out and a few poetry collections. I'm working on republishing those. Who Killed the Humans is going to be December this year. You can ignore the Amazon pre-order. It says March next year. The reason it says, well, actually, it's February 3rd next year. The reason it says that is in case I screw up. If I get ill or something happens to me and I have to delay, Amazon's not going to tell me off because my delay is built into the pre-order timeline.
Smart.
I want it to come out in December. It will come out in December. But if when I go to America, I'm going to Roswell, by the way, to write Earthloop. Nice. I'm going to the alien diners. So I'm going to go there. And if anything terrible happens to me, I've got 2 months grace period to heal, basically. Because I didn't give myself that for Who Built the Humans, and I had to delay it by 2 months because I don't remember what happened.
Because life happens, man.
Yeah, some shit went down.
Yeah, shit
and ordering the stories as well was critically important to me because it had to be a simple book that was easy to read, but simultaneously, for people who really loved it and they wanted to read it twice, 3 times over, I wanted to have stuff that they'd noticed, but only on the second time. So if you read like the story that Lax Morales appears in, if you read the chapters of that in reverse order, turns out Lax Morales has been doing a little bit of time travel that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. So it's a lot of fun.
Devin says you are going to have so much fun. They stopped there between duty stations. Definitely a return destination.
Yeah, I've heard it's really nice. Cool. It's a bit of a drive from where I'm going. I'm going to visit my friend in Utah, and we're driving to Roswell from there. But I've never had a road trip. Being in Britain, we can't go on road trips because we'd wind up in the sea.
Well, on the topic of road trips and traveling to my country and all that, you did Comic-Con?
I did a small Comic-Con in Manchester in the UK, yeah.
Ah, not the Comic-Con, a Comic-Con.
A Comic-Con, yeah, not the massive one. It's so expensive to set that kind of thing up.
Yeah, that's why I was so surprised to have seen it in your list. I was like, wait, the Comic-Con? Because that's expensive.
No, well, that's why it's worded that way. Good for the press, but
absolutely,
yeah. And it was an official like Comic-Con event.
Yeah,
but it was just one of the smaller ones.
One of the smaller ones. Yeah,
but I really do want to go to San Diego Comic-Con, but it costs like thousands to set up. I'd want more books out first, and then when I started thinking about it, I thought, no, actually, screw it. I want them to invite me. I want to get to the point on my own where they want me to go. I shouldn't have to pay thousands of dollars to sit at a table and be overheated. It's like I can do that in the privacy of my own home.
You're probably right. Yeah, you know what? I'm picking up what you're putting down. I like what you're
saying. It looked like a lot of fun, but at the same time, I thought I've got £1,000 to spare. Shall I go to visit a friend and then travel to Roswell to write books and drink milkshakes, or pay for another convention appearance? And I thought, yeah, I'm going to Roswell.
Yeah, milkshake sounds good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done 2 different like book festival convention type deals so far.
Yeah.
And the first one was too expensive for the number of books that I ended up selling. I don't feel like it was a good investment in the end. The second one was a great investment. It was like a $50 fee to get in, and I sold plenty of books, like so it's interesting. Like, you got to flip a coin sometimes and just see how it goes. This next one is not really a question. It's more of a statement. But mushrooms eating humans to get high is such a hilariously genius idea that I wish that I had thought of it first, and I'm a little angry at you for having thought of it.
Thank you so much. I was genuinely worried that somebody else would have thought of it first because it just came to me like in a vision. And I thought, this is so obvious. It's just
Yeah,
getting
it's
that
right there.
it. And I'm like, why has nobody else thought of that? And that reminds me, whilst who built the humans has that build your own adventure thing. So you get to the end of a comedy poem about aliens probing people, and it says, do you want to read more of this incredibly sickening comedy poetry, or would you like to read a serious story about time travel? And you have the choice to think, I've had enough, I'm going to go read the time travel for a minute. But whereas Who Killed the Humans is not simpler but punchier. So I present an idea. So one of the pages will just say, what if mushrooms could eat people? What would happen? And then you get to pick silly or serious. And if you pick serious, you get to read the story Mycelial, which was published recently by Cinnabar Moth Press. And they've got it for 6 months, and I've talked to them about it already. Once that 6 months is over, it's going in Who Killed the Humans. They can still keep it, but I also get to keep it as well. And it's going in Who Killed the Humans. And the silly version is the mushrooms story, where mushrooms eat humans and get high. And they're like, whoa, man, I totally feel like I've got hands and stuff. Oh, I'm going to go to an office. I'm going to send an email. Whoa.
You tripping,
like,
man.
My wife left. Whoa.
You're just tripping. Don't even worry about it, man. That's just the human. Just relax. Just relax and let the human go through your system, man.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I've never done mushrooms either, so it's extra fun for me to just pretend.
This book exists because I have done mushrooms. Book recommendations. Hit us up.
Me or the chat? Oh, me.
Yeah, you.
I like some Tales from the Afterlives by David Eagleman, who's a psychologist who turned into a writer after writing a lot about near-death experiences and what people thought about, different religions thought about the afterlife. That's a very clever book. One benefit of that one being traditionally published is that there's a cutout on the front page. So there's like the book has a door on it with a light shining through, and you can actually lift the cover, and the front cover has a hole in it that the light comes through. The light is printed on the page behind it. I wish I could have done that. I really wish I could have done that. But yeah, that's one of the things self-publishing can't do. What else? I think Stephen Baxter's books, Phase Space. What's the other one? Is it just called Time? I think Time's a good one. And some Ian M. Banks. I've not read a great deal. His books are incredibly long, but I like reading them, and just sometimes, I mean, for research purposes, one of my weak points when it comes to formatting is formatting dialogue. So I've read books like that which are very dialogue heavy, kind of have that Socratic style of storytelling, where a lot of the plot is really interesting, but if you look at it from a mechanical point of view, it is just pages and pages of characters arguing. And as a reader, you're like, this is really good. But if you submit that to a publisher, you might have an uphill struggle. But he did, and he got through. So it's really interesting dialogue-wise. And I love reading stuff like that, kind of as research to make sure, have I got my dialogue tags right? And reading into different authors, how they do it. I do it the American way. People will be happy to know. We have double quotations for speech and single quotations for quotes within speech. The British way is wrong. That's the one thing I'll say I hate about this country is we've got that backwards.
Where is Richard when you need him? Damn it. If he had just been in the chat when you said that. God. All right. You know what? I'm going to cut that little snippet out and email it directly to his face. Okay. Thank you very much for saying that. I'm so very happy that you said that. What is your new favorite writing hack or writing tool? Something that you really love using in your writing?
My hack as a writer when it comes to confidence in how good a story is actually is to ignore my own opinion. So if I write a story, I'll just pitch it to my readers. Like I've got a small group of people on Instagram, kind of like a secret group of like mad scientist types, and I'll go, here's a story about some weird shit that came into my head. Like this morning I thought, what if we gave drone warfare, quite a dark subject. Sure. But if we give one of those AI, but what if it's got like the AI of a receptionist from an IT company? So it's like it kills somebody and then asks them to fill out a survey about it. So how did you find your state-sponsored murder? and then you've got to click the little smiley faces. And I pitched that to them, and they went, "You're evil. We want to read it." And I was like, "Yes, there we go, there we go." That's like, but I get away with stuff like that because I'm very deadpan, and I write from a position where I'm not like trying to cause trouble. Trouble is just something that I have to stand in along the way to where I'm going. And that's how I see comedy as well. Because I think if you go on a stage and your goal is to wind people up, well, then you're just going to wind people up. Your goal should be to make people laugh. And then if people get wound up before the laughter or during the laughter, that's kind of their choice. You know, everybody's got their own hobbies. Some people's hobbies include being offended for some reason. And it's like you've got to just write what you think is going to make most people in the room have a good time. And that's where I am with the books as well. It's like, will my readers think this is brilliant? Will they think it's funny? Is it interesting as well? Because there's a lot of backstory with Lax Morales that I don't actually put in the books. I do a lot of writing and then I cut a lot out because I think, well, this is just minutia. This is just him making toast.
Yeah,
I need to write it so I know him.
Yeah, but
the readers don't need to give two shits about that kind of stuff. And it's like people were talking about the fade to black in stories as well. That somebody was saying, somebody even asked, and I'm sure this was bait. I'm sure this was bait on Twitter. They went, "Do you fade to black when a character goes to the toilet?" And I was so tempted to reply, and I was like, no, all of Lax Morales' shits are described in gratuitous detail. And it's, what kind of a question is that? It's like sex scenes. I get them in romance, but most of my readers know how sex works. I don't need to tell them. This isn't IKEA.
You know, the bathroom thing, wow. I don't think I've ever written a scene where the character even has to like excuse themselves to the bathroom. My characters don't shit.
Yeah, I mean, I've written scenes where like characters have gone to a urinal and they've like noticed a poster in the bathrooms that's like a band poster, and then in the next chapter they go to that gig. So it's like, if you don't it's important, if it's situational.
No,
like, I shouldn't have to say, "Oh, he's gone to the urinal to piss out of his penis." That's where the piss comes out, and it's like the reader's like, "Oh my god, I had no idea."
Before zipping up.
Yeah, and it's like they're gonna know. It's not like nobody's ever gonna presume he's walked into a urinal to like write a new novel.
Hysterical. Philip, we are coming down here to the end of the show. We've got a couple minutes left. Let's start winding it down for the folks at home. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up today? This is a new thing that I do now. I ask people to ask me questions.
Yeah, go on then. What's your hair care routine?
My hair currency? Economics was never my strong suit, but I'm sure if I wanted to sell it to a wig maker, I could probably make some money.
I said hair care routine.
Oh, my hair care routine.
That sounds like a poetry collection by somebody nobody's heard of. You should buy hair currency. What's it about? Fuck knows.
It's actually quite simple. Water-based shampoos and leave the conditioner in. That's it.
Oh, that's smart, right? I've got lime scented beard oil for mine at the moment.
Lime scented. That's a choice.
It's very nice. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. With the synesthesia, there's like certain like smells and stuff that I find really pleasant, which I'm sure like people probably just think I've just recently robbed a garden centre. It's like, why does that guy smell very much like earth?
Do you see the smell of your beard like radiating out of you? Like,
I do a little bit, yeah. Like it's kind of like there in the peripheries, like a blue kind of mist. It's very strange. It's a lot of fun. I'm actually like,
you're a science fiction character yourself.
I know, right?
Walking around like normal people. What's going on?
That's what I like. I used to say it privately. I'm happy to say it publicly now. The weirder bits in my books are usually true.
Ooh.
Like the stranger bits usually have happened. Like this is to how long have we got? Because I'll tell everybody a really crazy story.
Go for it.
Okay, so because I've got synesthesia, I'm quite sensitive to like not necessarily electromagnetism, but like bright lights and stuff. And humans are naturally sensitive to electromagnetism to a degree. There's a castle in Scotland which had a lot of ghost sightings, and it turned out that there was a metal four-poster bed in one of the bedrooms, and that acted as a sort of Faraday cage, and that's where everybody saw the ghosts. And the prevailing theory is that it's electromagnetic interference, because we are, at the end of the day, there's electrons in there zipping about, and you can mess with them if you try really hard. You can mess with them. A while ago, when I was a kid, one of my family members lost a camera battery on a beach, and I was like, they tasked us all to look for it. I wasn't with them on the beach when it went missing. We went walking. We're all like combing the beach, holding hands, like we were looking for a body for some reason. It was a very precious camera battery for this guy that I didn't get along with at all, and he didn't get along with me even more after this because he was very Catholic, and I freaked him the hell out because I could see waves of green light coming towards me from a rock. And I thought, what's this? And as a teenager, you're worried. You're like, what if I'm mentally ill and they're going to put me in a room? But I thought, you know what? It's like, I'm going to trust my instincts. And I went and I reached under that rock. I ran away from my family and they're like really angry at me because I was supposed to help them. And I reached under the rock. First rock I reached under, where all the waves were coming from. There's the camera battery with these like green waves coming out of it. And like, I had friends who was like, they were into psychic stuff and they were like, oh, you're a powerful psychic. And I went, no, because I've not found a magic coin. I found a camera battery. I found an electromagnetic object on a beach where there's no other electromagnetic objects. I can't do that anywhere else because I live in the modern world. So I'm like, my theory is that to an extent you can pick up on that kind of stuff, and the synesthesia in that one moment when I was going through puberty translated the electromagnetism into a visual stimulus. And that's where the beginning of the Stephanie glitch starts, is she does that. And that's the weirdest part of the story, but it fucking happened to me. And it's such a weird thing to talk about because I kept it secret for like 15 years because people are going to be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I wish it was replicable, but it actually happened. And also doing stand-up, you can't really bring that up because people are like, is this a bit? Are you messing with us right now? But there is evidence for it. Like autistic people struggle with fluorescent lights. They have a higher, some people slang call it a shutter speed. So autistic people can see the flickering lights where neurotypical people can't see them flickering. And I think it's something like that. I think it's just something very simple.
Yeah, just
very hard to investigate.
You're like tuned in to a particular, frequency that others are not quite as tuned.
Yeah, because I used to like get headaches if there was TV static in my house, like if people had the TV static going. I hated that. My guy,
that's 2 copies you sold today. Hey!
Oh, wow. Thank you, Jennifer. Yes.
Let's do it. All right.
I might actually be out of my overdraft today.
There you go.
That American trip.
Is what she's imagining. That's Cthulhu spot. All right. Well, hey, Philip, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for joining me today. Is there anything, an event coming up, a book coming out, anything you want people to know about before we close out for the day?
If anybody's not sure about buying my book or not, you can get a free sample of one of the short stories. It's complete. It doesn't suddenly end halfway through. You can get it on Amazon. I've listed it as free. They might change that. If they have, message me about it. I'll make it free again. But you can just check it out on whobuiltthehumans.com, which just leads right to my link tree, and then you can see everything I do. From the comedy on Patreon, which I have to, fair warning, it's quite dark. There's a reason it's paywalled. Yeah, there's a reason it's paywalled. It's for my own safety. I like not being banned on Instagram. It's a novelty. And
nice. And not everybody can boast that.
Yeah, and you can find all of my books, poetry collections as well, silly ones, serious ones, all the kind of stuff that I do, even the Lego stuff. So everything's on whobuiltthehumans.com. I wanted to say as well, I really like the format of this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Like I sort of shut mine down for a few months to like work out where I wanted to go with it. Like, I kind of want to do a talk show kind of thing. I really like the look of this and how everybody could actually chat as well, because that was sorely missing in mine at the beginning. So I'd like to redo it.
StreamYard is your friend. It makes streaming extremely easy. They don't need to download any, your guests. They don't need to download any apps. They don't need, like whatever device they use, as long as it has a camera and a microphone, they're good to go.
Yeah, it's really good. Like the last stream I did, I was building the book cover of the Cosmic Comedy Collection inside Minecraft whilst interviewing one of my co-writers and Devilish Bookworms who reviewed it. So we had like a three-way conversation about like art and where the world is going when it comes to like weird writing whilst I was rebuilding the book cover in Minecraft. I love doing stuff like that. It's brilliant. Yeah. Right. Well, I won't hold you any longer.
No,
Let
you're
me guess.
good. Stick around because we still got to go into the green room and have a little bit more of a chat between the two of us. For everybody watching live, thank you very much for joining us for the time that you have been. Next week, we're
Mm,
talking to James Flanagan all about
nice.
his near future sci-fi, which is something I'm very, very interested in.
Yeah, he's
Tomorrow.
interviewed me before. I remember
Oh,
him.
good.
Yeah,
Okay, cool,
yeah.
cool.
We've actually
Uh,
talked. But I just wanted to say thank you again to Jennifer and Devon for buying the book, and
Lovely.
thank you to everybody else for being interested in the book as well.
And if
Because
you
that's
want to see more of Mr. Philip Carter, join us tomorrow. His episode of The Green Room, which he and I are going to go record right now, will air somewhere around 4 p.m., most likely. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Keep checking it out. Thank you again, Philip. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Everybody, newsletter link down below. Philip, stick around. Everyone else, thank you so much for coming. Bye.
yeah.